Is it easier for you to be yourself in conversations like this, or to be acting?
So hang on, pause. Start with that question.
Well, we could have just started right there.
Oh, I didn't know that he started. Include this in the episode.
This is the
You know,
organized guy.
My
I like
guy.
this. I like this.
I want to come off as a professional.
This is
you know,
this is the frustration I feel with him on the business all the time.
we're showing.
I annoy him when it comes to the creative and like videos and all that stuff. And the questions he comes and asks me about real estate, investors, what's happening in the business. He asks me the same question 75 different times. This is the give and take, man. This is the yin and yang. This is the side of the business people don't often see.
I just don't like always the answers he's giving me. That's what it is.
Yeah,
so sometimes I want to hear something, and he doesn't say it, and so I try again.
You want to know what really irked him yesterday?
All right, what you got?
We share an assistant.
Okay.
And we're sitting in the conference room with our assistant. And she's like, you know what, Mikey? She's talking to him. She's like, you know what, Mikey? I'm really surprised. Like, generally speaking, I think you're wrong about stuff. And most of the time, you're right. And he was riding a major high on that one. But then she looked at me. She's like, but Michael's always right.
Oh, no.
That bugged him. Look at that. Look at it. It's still bugging him.
It's fake news.
Amazing.
All right. So, what's the biggest show you've done so far? Is it Eastbound and Down or is it Cobra Kai? Which one's technically bigger?
Yeah, I don't know the metrics. I guess it depends on how you rate them. I think that they're both kind of cult classics in a weird way, which I think is crazy. I've like finagled my way into two shows that are like considered that. I'd say that Cobra Kai has probably got like a bigger following just because it taps into different generations. But at the same time, I think everybody knows who Kenny Powers is. Like I don't know. I don't know. I need to run some numbers, I guess.
So you were Kenny Powers' nephew on the show?
Yes, technically, yeah.
Okay, so that one, like, I feel like, yeah, it is a cult classic. That one was like everywhere. Was that the role that kind of changed everything for you? Is that when you started getting noticed and people?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was. It was definitely kind of like a quote unquote like whatever breakout, whatever. It's like that stuff's all kind of corny, but like I really had an interesting run because I've been doing this since I was an infant. Like, accidentally got roped into it because in a mall, an agent came up to us and was like, whatever. And
That's real. That actually happened?
Yeah, it happened. Yeah, I got discovered. Yeah.
So some guy's walking by, you're a kid, and he goes, "You'd be a good actor."
Yeah, it was a. I think it was somewhere in North Carolina, and yeah, this agent walked by us in a mall, and I was walking a little early, and so she was like, "Oh, your baby is really cute. It could be, good for modeling. Have you ever thought about that?" Blah blah blah. That's kind of what I think happened. I don't know. I wasn't cognizant yet. But yeah, ultimately that was a scam as well back then, though. So it's interesting. We got really really lucky and didn't get scammed. It was an actual agent. But yeah, I started doing like whatever you call it, like Baby Gap or J.C. Penney. Like I was like a kid in like a denim overall, like plastered above a rack of clothes, like that was kind of like lookbook stuff, and that's just how it started. Yeah, and
I didn't know
just
that.
Just kind of grew up from there. Like my parents were amazing; they kept me in it. Didn't just stop after that. Like kind of helped me pursue it, and then I was trying to think 11 or 12 when we did Eastbound and Down, and that one was one of my first big roles. That one and this other show that is not as popular, but it's called October Road, which is a drama that was on ABC a long time ago. It was like competing with Grey's Anatomy back in the day, and obviously Grey's Anatomy won, which is fine. But the whole Eastbound and Down thing, I remember booking that role, and it was really interesting. It was also my first time experiencing the industry. I kind of got almost like, I guess, handed the role in a weird way. I auditioned for a completely different character, and they were like, they kind of just put me in that role instead. I never auditioned for that character. But the way that happened was I was auditioning for Talladega Nights, which is like a Will Ferrell movie.
If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Ricky Bobby. The way that worked was, that doesn't happen anymore, but you would do callbacks, and callbacks are where you kind of work your way through the decision makers. And we got to this point to where we were on like our 6th callback, which is insane. Usually you do 2 or 3. And it's like doing multiple interviews, for a company or something. And at this stage, it turned into more of what's called a chemistry read. And so I actually got to read with I was one of John C. Reilly's kids. I was going to be the older one. So I was reading with the actual younger kid that actually played the role. And the people judging us was Will Ferrell and a couple of their producers. And so like they saw me kind of like, whatever, do that thing then, and like 2 or 3 years later, they saw me again reading for Eastbound and Down and like kind of picked me up. So that was awesome.
So when you're young, you're getting paid to do this stuff, right? Baby Gap ads.
Yeah.
Did you just watch you maybe not even realizing this because you're from 3 to 11 making money? Parents just kept it in a savings account. They were investing it. Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, it was awesome. My parents are amazing. I've been blessed with like really, really just awesome parents in general. Like they are not only, smart and sharp, they're entrepreneurs themselves. They come from a line of entrepreneurs. And like my dad was fourth generation brick mason. All of his fathers ran their own brick mason company. My mom was a hairdresser. Her dad ran the TV repair shop in town. Just talk about like retro TV repair is not a thing anymore. But like, so coming from that, I think they knew kind of what to do with the money. But what was interesting was they allowed me to like do stuff with the money. So if I had a good idea, they would help me pursue it. And so I ended up doing like small businesses. Like I started, when I was 8, I bought into a snow cone franchise and popped up snow cone franchises around my hometown, and then developed that into like we built a rolling snow cone hut. Like we put a snow cone hut on top of a trailer, like early food truck, and started going to events on the weekends and did that from like 8 to 12, and then it grew into other stuff. So I just like invest the money in businesses and did that.
What a great start. Were you homeschooled? Did you go to public school?
I was homeschooled towards like my later years. Yeah, I got out of like public school probably around that time.
Is that because of acting?
It's because of acting. Yeah, I couldn't stay in the school. It just wasn't working. It was like I think now with Zoom and all the things that happened with COVID, you could probably work your way through all that. But back then it was like, oh, you miss a week of school, you're expelled. Like, and so it was like we had to figure something out. So yeah, they homeschooled me, and that was great. It was funny. I was like, by myself all the time. But
I feel like everybody I talk to that's been homeschooled raves about how amazing it is. Why does it have such a bad stigma though?
Well, it's right when he said that, I was like, dang, this sounds homeschool, right? I think, like, look, I went to public school. Like, I wasn't homeschooled. And back then, I think the stigma came from it being so small and somewhat obscure that, it was the social aspect that I think kids potentially suffered on, right? It wasn't the education side. I think like most kids you meet that were homeschooled back when I was a kid, they're bright. But there was always something a little,
something a little
the
off.
social kind
Yes.
of aspect of it was a little bit challenging. But like we homeschool our kids now. I think it's different what you're experiencing. So as a dad, my biggest concern was always that aspect. Are my kids going to be around other kids? Are they going to learn how to work through conflict with them? If they're just in my house, I don't know if they're going to be equipped to go out there, right? But a lot of the homeschools now have so many kids going to them and so many programs that like I think my kids are more plugged in with kids now than when they were at private school. But I would say the coolest thing that we experience is what you just said. Like the school that my kids go to once a week and then they're with us the other 4, they do an annual, what's it called? When you go
Like a fair?
Kind of. It's a
Like a farmer's market?
Yes, bingo. They do an annual farmer's market,
Okay.
right? And each kid has to come up with a concept of something that they want to sell. They
cool.
have their booth, and then
Yeah.
all of the parents and friends go and they have to basically sell it, right? And the first year, my kids were like, okay, this is what I want to do. They want to do like garland, like felt ball things, right?
Okay.
So we bought the material. We helped build it with them. We packaged it. We worked on the design. I worked with my girls on how to sell it.
Awesome.
And they got to keep all the money, right? They had to pay us back the
Yeah,
cost.
yeah.
But it was like the best experience for them to see how business works.
Yeah.
It was awesome. You don't get that in public school.
And not to harp on the homeschool thing, but I mean, look, I have 2 young kids also. They go to a school. It's not a public school, but look, the reality is the public schools are really failing, right? I mean, how much of our education are we putting out there just to teach kids about the most basic money principles out there that they're not getting in school? They're in school 8 hours a day. The homeschool kids, what I see, your kids, they're in school, what, 45 minutes a day?
Doug, you need an hour of work with the kids. Now, my oldest is 11, so we're still in the younger phase. But seriously, an hour a day, boom. And then you try to get them out in the world, right?
Is that how it was for you too?
Yeah,
Short.
it was short. It
sprints?
was short and sweet. It was like, yeah, there's a lot of things I could speak on there. First of all, the social aspect I think is really interesting because back then that was still a problem. We didn't have social media. That's a blessing and a curse to our culture and like and all that. But I think that helps homeschool kids. I didn't have that. No one else did, and so we would do these little homeschooler meetups. And I remember I'm gonna sound like a butthole when I say this, but I remember being around those kids and thinking to myself that I'm different from them because of the way that we interacted. And I don't mean to sound mean, but like I think I was blessed with the opportunity to be around people more because I was acting and traveling and particularly around adults more, which allowed me the opportunity to mature quicker. And through that, when I came back to kids in my age group, it was just like a different level. It was like it was like if you put, a high schooler in the room with some first graders. It's just gonna be different, and it wasn't that drastic, but just to make an example out of that. And so I can imagine now that's obviously way better, right? But yeah, it was definitely that was a very interesting thing. And then the education, to quickly touch on that, first of all, I never stopped. I never took a summer, and then on top of that, I was doing 2 or 3 days worth of work in one normal day's span. So like I actually finished everything by the time I was 15. And that was a goal that was put on me by my agents and managers because you want to get your GED and get out of school ASAP because you're allowed a couple perks on set as well as it makes you more of an appealing hire so that you don't have to be schooled.
Interesting. Yeah, we had somebody come in a couple weeks ago, actually a potential investor we were talking to, and we were just talking about growing up, and he was homeschooled, and then he went to college afterward. And what was interesting is he said he loved everything about homeschool. He's my age, so went through that tough time. Yeah. But he said going out of graduating high school and then going into college was a shock to the system for him. He was like, it was a big school, and it was like I just didn't feel prepared for that side of it. But like you talk to him, and like he is bright. He was on a call with you on one of the roundtables. If you remember, he was the one asking all the questions. You were like, dude, these questions are insane, right? When I met with him, I was like, so you're a real estate person. Like the questions he was asking would make you think that he'd been investing in real estate for 10 years.
Very sophisticated.
Awesome. And he goes, no, I've never done anything in real estate. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, look, I knew that there was a call coming up. Yeah. I'm interested in investing with you guys. So I spent time doing due diligence to learn it. So I knew the questions to ask to get to a decision. Yeah. And I'm like, that we don't do that. Like that is one thing that I don't think the majority of people possess. And that's such a valuable skill.
But that's also like what it really comes down to, right? Like the kids do not need to be in school for 8 hours a day. My kids get 3 hours a day of general studies, right? Like the basic fundamental education. And so they're doing a little bit more than what your kids are doing in homeschool. But the kids that are sitting there in class for 8-9 hours a day and then have 2-3 hours of homework, how are they doing so much work and yet they're so unbelievably unprepared?
Well, you know what I would say? There's a book, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. When, like with my kids, it's Jen and, right now 2 of them. So when you have one-on-one time with a student, they just learn better than one teacher, 35 kids. So I think because that's the structure in public school, it just takes more to get out there. But, you're kind of touching on something that we're seeing public school and even colleges. Like if you were to look at them as basically a market or a free market, they are not presenting a return. That's apparent, right? And you're seeing the shift happen where more people are in private school, the homeschool numbers are like psychotic right now, right? That's kind of showing that there's a shift happening. In theory, you would hope that public schools would recognize this and go, okay, we need to switch back and, at least see what's happening and go, we need to solve something.
The problem is that there's no incentive for them to actually ensure that the performance exists for the kids, right? The incentive for the schools is attendance. That's why they drive attendance so much. Right. That's how they get their money.
Right.
But if you're homeschooling your kids, the only metric you have for performance is that they're absorbing the information and actually learning.
Right.
You don't care about, checking a box that they attended on a given day. And so, like everything else, what is the incentive structure that's attached to it? He was incentivized to finish at 15 because it would allow him to do more. It motivated him to get the job done. And so the incentive structure in and of itself, I think, is a big part of the system that is broken.
Right. So you graduate 15, go full blown into acting.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, in touch on what you guys were saying too, the whole bright thing, I think the way I like to phrase that, what you described as bright, is like critical thinking.
Right.
I think a lot of people are losing that, as like an ability. We're not being taught how to critically think. And
Right.
I think that's just so important. It's like you just have to think for yourself. And we're not doing that as much. And I think the kids aren't being taught that. It's like problem solving,
Right.
And then, not to derail the conversation, I just wanted to touch on a few things I heard you guys say. One thing I'm really intrigued about is like what's being taught, like what's being time spent. It's like really interesting that I think that you have a lot of stuff that we touched on earlier, and I think you guys have talked about this a few times. But there's like no one's learning about money in school. No one's learning about stuff you actually need half the time. It's stuff that you should know, but I feel like once you learn how to write a research paper, which is a book report, and creatively write, which is an essay, and once you learn basic algebra. A few other key things I think you can take on the world, really, you should go and continue to obviously improve yourself and educate yourself every day. But I mean, I joke about this, but I think college is just a great chance to learn how to wash your own clothes, Like, I mean, I don't mean to pay disrespect to anybody who goes to college, but at the same time, that's all it is. You're learning to do your own laundry. You learn to be an adult. More so than the stuff that you're learning. You spend a year or two usually doing gen ed. You're just doing high school over. Or finally learning how to do trigonometry. Like, it's just, and then you get to go and do whatever you want. I don't know. So I don't want to go on a rant, but that was just stuff that I was picking out of you guys' conversation.
Did you go to college?
Interesting. I did a year and a half of tech school, and this is actually a funny story. My advisor at my tech school, because I was doing it because it was like they had the whole online program thing, and I was doing the meet with my advisor, and she was like, hey, like you're an actor, like you should just go out there and do it. And I was like, oh, this is really odd talk to be getting from my college advisor. And she was like, she gave me this whole spiel about how James Franco like didn't do college and came back to it later. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna enroll my next semester. Thanks for telling me all that. And then like halfway through that semester, I had to like drop everything and leave because like basically James Franco like co-signed me and brought me out here to live with him and like put me on like 10 projects. I was not planning that when we first had that talk, but she like oddly just how things like that get intertwined in the world, that she brought that up. But anyway, yeah, the whole acting thing after 15, like it was kind of just greenlit. It was like, okay, I need to be kind of figuring out like making this a full-time job basically. Like, so it turned into that very much. Like my mom sold her hair business and dropped everything pretty much. And then we just started coming out to LA for like 6-month stints for the seasons. There's episodic and pilot season, which is when shows are filming, which is when your highest opportunity to book roles are.
Right.
So
it's a family business now.
Your now it's a family
pretty
business.
Involved in what you're doing. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, man, 100%. And it was for a while. My mom's always been kind of like a momager, like a mom manager. And my dad's a champ. He would, he's ran his own business for a while now and still does. And kind of helped us keep things afloat while we were figuring that out,
Right.
in the earlier years, which was awesome.
So we talked last week about you. I don't know if it's venturing into the financial space or just wanting to educate yourself on it, but it sounds like you now have your Series 6 or
Yeah.
tell me about where we're at on the financial side.
Yeah. I've been in love with it, honestly, just learning how that stuff works really on the deeper level rather than just like, save money for retirement, ABCD. I've gotten my 6, 63, and 65 licenses through FINRA, so I, can, sell securities and also work as an IAR, and do, investment advice basically. So it was just kind of a path that got kind of thrown upon me. I had an amazing financial advisor that was helping me and my wife, and I bugged the heck out of her like daily with harebrained ideas. And I think she just finally was like, you might be good at this. You want to even like consider trying it or just like learning about it more. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. And so she offered me to do all of the training for free and all the licensing free. She paid for everything. Her firm paid for everything. So I was like, cool, free education, like totally down for that. And I've just the past year or so I've just been falling in love with it, and it was all really good timing because like the past few years have been very interested in this. Obviously, just becoming an adult, like I bought a house and I was like, okay, like, you know, you got to save money, you got to retire, you know, you got to, or at least you got to have a nest egg, whatever your views are, you know, you got to understand how money works at the end of the day. That's the bottom line in America, at least. And so through that, yeah, I just really dove into it, and it worked out kind of well for me because the acting strike was popping off right about that time. And I was like, yeah, I'm about to go into like an unknown period of time probably doing nothing. Like, this is perfect. So it just synced up really well. And yeah, man, it's been an awesome ride learning how to do it.
So did you look at it as a hedge against, you know, if acting goes somewhere, did you just want to learn, or do you want this to potentially become your new career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think starting off with it, I had no idea really what I was doing it for, but now kind of being in it for this length of time and learning all these things, I think it is, like you said, kind of a hedge against the acting, you know, just gig economy that it is. And also just, yeah, like a hedge is safe net, right? I can go through 100 more strikes and know that I have something to kind of lean on, you know? And that's something that I'm glad I did now. Again, the haunting advice from that random, you know, advisor at the technical school, bless her heart. But it's like I kind of went back to school, you know, even though it wasn't a formal college experience. I like took a year and just put my head down and got into these, you know, 1,000-page manuals and like did the test and whatever, figured it out. And I've been doing the business too now for 6 or 7 months, and it's been so fulfilling. Like, and I actually found out that I love it. I love talking about how this stuff works. I love helping people, and actually it's so cool. It's fulfilling. I helped a friend of mine buy his first house, like, and that was like insane. I like didn't think, when he like sent me a picture of him holding his keys, I got emotional. I was like, dude, like we did that together, kind of like he did the hard work, but I was like, it was like getting to see that happen. It's like, I don't know, that was like really sick, and I didn't expect that either. So
Did you feel that way when you were an advisor?
Yeah, when you can solve people's problems that they can't solve for themselves, and you can help them get to where it is that they want to go, it's extraordinarily fulfilling, because you have to realize that the path to get to what their objective is would have taken them a lot longer, and they would have had a lot more road bumps along the way had they not sought your counsel. And so the ability to help guide that path, help them avoid landmines along the way, and get them to ultimately where they want to go, just like what happened with this friend, is one of the most fulfilling things in the world.
Right.
You know?
Well, I heard this today, actually. We were in the office about how you bought your first house, or an investment you made that paid off that bought your first house. We were talking about crypto in the last episode.
Was it crypto?
Yeah, it was crypto. It was just crazy.
Have you been tracking crypto for a while?
I've been
He's
tracking
heavy
it
on
for
crypto
a
right
while.
now.
Here we go.
He's heavy on crypto.
Let's go.
No, him.
Yeah. Oh, you are.
This has been like his new thing in the last few months.
You're one of those retail investors. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing.
He's late to the track.
Damn. No, listen. Now, my first crypto purchase was 2017. So I'm late for the, 2010 bros, but I'm not like our guy over there who just got in 2 weeks ago, right? This was my whole thing with crypto. I knew that it was going to be the future, but I looked at it having a lot of volatility and a ton of risk. And so the weight that I came in on was very limited. I just wasn't willing to lose a big portion of my portfolio. Now, where I gave people criticism is people were investing in crypto like they were investing in real estate. They looked at it as like a risk-adverse investment that was going to be here and got smashed.
Yeah.
I was not that bro.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But what Michael's referring to is we have a series called Pin High where we go and golf and we make bets on all the holes, and at the end, whoever's up gets to pick an investment. So the loser basically gifts the winner the investment, right? And for the last 3 shows, I've been on digital. I've been on crypto. Now, here's my thought process, right? You're talking about a small amount of money that I'm basically being gifted, considering I win. Now, I've only won 1 of the 5 rounds, and so why not take the gamble? Like, why not put it on something wild, like Flow Key or Bonk or something,
there you
nuts,
go. Yeah.
and just get a bang.
So I'm still not in it in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
And I used to be a financial advisor like you're venturing into right now. And I will admit, I fell victim to what I think is the quicksand of financial advisors, in that when something new comes to the space, as an advisor, you look at it with a very skeptical mind. You look at it as, how is this a way for me to lose money or for me to lose my client's money? And that I think is one of the big problems that advisors have now, because they're not viewing things through an opportunistic lens. They're viewing things through a risk lens. And you have to have a little bit more of a balance of both. And so I think many advisors looked at crypto and said, I don't understand it. I don't know what drives that market, and I'm not going to expose my clients' dollars to it. And that was a major opportunity that was missed. So while there are people, like Mikey was saying, on one side of the equation where they were mortgaging their house to buy more crypto, that was one side of the spectrum that was just like absolutely bonkers. There was also the other side of the spectrum, which I actually fell into, which was, I'm staying as far away from this as possible. And really looking back at it, you should have been in the middle. You should have said, this is an opportunity, and I have a portion of my money that I'm willing to not gamble with, but take more risk with.
Right.
And I'm going to allocate those dollars. So, hindsight's 20/20. We live and we learn, and there's always going to be opportunities that are missed. I mean, when I was a kid, my mom and dad, they made a good amount of money in the fabric business in the 80s. And there was a townhouse development that was being built right across the street not across the street, but down the block from our home. They built 80 townhomes. And at that time, they were selling them for 25 grand. Wow. And my mom begged my dad. She's like, let's buy like 10 of these. One for each kid, and then let's have 10 more as investment. And my dad's like, no way, it's crazy, not happening. Those are each $1.5 million now, because they're in a great area in LA. Right. And so it's just like, there's always missed opportunities like that. Well, it's just about not kicking yourself in the foot when it happens.
Well, I'm okay. Like, if I look back and go, dang, I would have made a lot of money if I would have made that investment. But the thesis that got me to the decision of me making a no decision was accurate, I'm fine. Like, I just want to stick to my discipline, right? The challenge I had, or maybe it's this, the outlook I had on crypto when it was a little bit earlier was, you're going to see a big boom just like the dot-com moment. And then all of a sudden there's going to be a bust, and there's going to be a handful that survive. And I wasn't sure which those handful were going to be, right? That was one. Two, I like some type of use. Like, I don't want just like some crypto that, this Discord or these messenger groups are going to be hot on marketing. They're going to drive the price up. People are going to sell before, the masses realize it. I want nothing to do with that. And if you look at the total space, that was happening everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's most of it.
The risk that I saw was one, that. Two, I think there's still some political risk. Like, I don't think America is going to allow a decentralized anything. I don't think they're going to allow us to do business without them. And so what type of political risk is going to be put on this? And, how much of the Fed is going to try to intervene and create, their digital coin? And what does that mess look like, right? So maybe that, coupled with the fact that crypto wasn't my thing. I'm not a crypto expert. I'm not jumping knee deep. We're building apartments. We're building storage units. Like, that is my focus. But what can I put over here? And it was small. Like, if I lost all of my holdings in crypto, all good.
Yeah.
I'd love to make money, but it doesn't impact me.
Yeah.
What he's talking about, we had a lot of conversations with investors 3 years ago when we were raising money for a project. And they'd be like, nope, I'm all in. I'm long on this stuff. And we had friends that were basically taking out seconds or HELOCs against their home to buy. And I can't tell you the calls we got afterwards saying, I need money. Like, I'm screwed. Somebody called me saying, I think my wife's going to leave me. Like, it was not a good scenario.
Yeah.
That stuff, in my perspective, is somebody that is comfortable with risk and doesn't have the capacity to support that risk, right?
Right.
That's not the game I'm playing.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's dangerous too. Like you said, it's kind of gambling money. Ironically, you don't bet the house on it. It's like, it's a very speculative commodity. It's something that is just, it's extremely new tech. It is kind of .com bubble-esque. I think the AI is going to truly be the next .com bubble, but then you got down the road, I think crypto will get there. I think, not to even derail that, I'll go back into the crypto thing, but I think AI is very conceivable because of pop culture. We can think iRobot and think AI, and then whether or not we love it or hate it, we can accept it in the market. But the crypto has no real tangibility within pop culture yet, and so it's not conceivable by the retail side, and so therefore it's just not something that's really going to pop off. But it's
the Bitcoin ETFs are going to bring a lot of money, and I guess it already is.
Yeah,
right?
and that's like, I think it's going to be reminiscent of like gold in the 70s and kind of how that shook out. And that's great. And I think you gotta get that exposure, and you gotta help people realize it's not all a scam and whatever, and so forth.
So do you know who Pomp is? Do you follow Pomp at all?
No, I don't think so. No.
Pomp is like, he's been like the Bitcoin like advocate and leader for a long time,
Okay.
right? He's on Fox all the time, and
Nice.
he's a big deal. I end up on his podcast years ago. I
Awesome.
didn't know who he was. I had a friend of mine who went to school with him and was like, dude, you should jump on his podcast. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So I go on his podcast and we're talking. I don't even know he's like the crypto guy,
Yeah.
right? Or the Bitcoin guy. So we're talking. At the end, he goes, so like, what do you know about crypto? I'm like,
Oh, here you go.
little,
Yeah.
and it was just so funny. Like now knowing him, I had no clue the significance of what he was doing when I did that interview. But one thing that I think is interesting, like people don't really talk about this, is it's like the faith-based group, right? Like your Christians or your Catholics are the ones that basically like believe in the Bible. In the Bible, you have basically Genesis, which is the beginning, right? That's where the Old Testament we share in common, and then at the end of the New Testament you have Revelation, right? That's what's to come. And everybody's heard about the mark of the beast, and at least the things that the Bible presents to, whether you think it's true or not, that's maybe the conversation. But in the end times, as it pertains to Revelation, they talk about a mark that you will have to participate in society, and that mark is going to be how you buy and sell, right? And so a lot of faith groups go, oh my gosh, like that's crypto.
Yeah.
Like that is going to be the part that basically how we exchange information and how you can monitor it if you think that's to come.
Right.
So that was, I think, just an interesting part that I don't really hear a lot of people talk about.
No, I like that aspect on it. I think it could go either way. I think the beauty of it is the whole thing was created, right? The idea of it was that it was going to be this kind of free market. It was going to be decentralized, and it was going to be kind of like the Matrix almost, where you could, if you watch like that movie, it's kind of funny to refer to it, but like you go in there and you're like your own person. You can be like someone that you're not, or whatever that really means. But at the end of the day, it just means that you could kind of move in a different direction silently and do things without maybe being seen or having it be tangible to yourself, right? And so I think that it can truly become like that mark of the beast scenario where you can be tracked on it, if the wrong people get it in their hands, right? But I think at the end of the day, the right way it should be used is a way to kind of, like I said, have a free market, be kind of off the grid almost. Everything is trackable, it's immutable. That's what gives it value. But at the same time, you don't know who ABCDXY 1000 wallet is, right? And if you do things correctly with VPNs and sorts, you can completely be anonymous. I think that is something that we should have access to. There's obviously the AML and stuff, and so you don't want to do anything illegal, obviously, but at the same time, I think you should be allowed to, have some of that amity, You should be able to, like, kind of do some stuff like that. And I think that's the beauty it brings.
Do you think, I agree. Like, I thought that was always the best case for it, right? Do you guys think we would ever live in a society that would allow a full-blown free market trade? Because you make the argument now, like, we don't live in a free market. Like, even the people that are against capitalism, like, it's not a full capitalist system anymore. It's almost like a hybrid now. So does that ever play out where it's like a full free flow of exchange?
You go first.
Nope. The
answer is no, obviously, because I think politicians are just too power hungry, right? They want to be able to have regulatory control over it. So how do they take control over something that's decentralized? So that's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. And that's actually what was my big issue with crypto, beyond not really understanding it, was the political risk, because politicians are notorious for wanting to have their hands on understanding how something works and not allowing things to be completely free. And there's an argument to be made that perhaps that there's good reason for that, because it protects people that wouldn't otherwise be able to figure it out. Now, the question ultimately becomes, what is the appropriate level of regulatory control over it that allows it to still have some degree of a free market variable to it, but at the same time can protect those people that need to be protected. I don't know where that lands. Unfortunately, I think given the last handful of years, we've seen politicians kind of extend their arm of control beyond where it reasonably should be. As to whether or not they do that in the, blockchain and crypto space, probably. I think that's exactly what they will do. Time will tell.
You saw, RFK and maybe Vivek were pretty pro crypto in those two campaigns, right? I think they were both showed up at Miami at the conference.
Vivek gets it. Vivek understands. I mean, he's 30. What is he? 38 years old.
Young.
So he kind of he grew into that space really well. RFK, I think, just speaks to the youth in a very specific way.
He's been like advocating for it big time.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they get it. But again, remember the way that our government works. The president doesn't really have all that much control, right?
And
so it's like
they're not in the government yet.
Correct.
They're running for it, right?
And back to the incentive structure that we talked about with the school system. What is the incentive structure today for a politician to actually do the thing in the best interest of their constituents? It's not there as much as the incentive is for them to protect their own career and to do whatever is necessary to advance their own kind of agenda. And so I think the incentive structure as a whole doesn't allow for politicians to do what's best for society. I mean, public service is not really public service, at least in my opinion, the way that it used to be, or I think the way that it should be, which is why one thing that the left and the right seem to really agree on is term limits. Right. Like it's the one factor that they seem to be perfectly aligned on is making sure that there's term limits. And they realize that because they feel like politicians are serving these 20, 30-year careers. They haven't done anything for the people that they serve. And so if
they're
you have
wealthy doing it.
So if you have, well, I mean, look, how many people follow politicians trading?
Whales,
Yeah.
So do you, I like, look, 1 to 2 year term limit, I think would serve the country well. Central bank digital coin. Is that something that we should do or no?
Whew, that's about as heavy as the last couple questions.
We're getting real here. We're going deep, boys.
Dude, that one. So there's your way to edge into like the mark of the beast, quote unquote. Like that's a hairy one because of the way that you can track everything on the blockchain and how it is immutable. You're 100% at the will of political and regulatory risk. If the government wants to siphon all their money out of your bank account, it's already easy to do, but at that point, it's infinitely easier. So it is dangerous in that aspect because, again, I think that we are owed a limit of control to what we have, right? It's our thing. It's America. That's kind of why people want to come here and do that stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's a hairy one. It's going to be better logistically because blockchain is a better payment processor than what we're currently using. So logistically, awesome. And again, regulatory, politically, ethically, it's kind of gray.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I mean, we're seeing that with AI too. Like these are tools or technologies that can be used for good. You just always run the risk that it gets in the wrong hands, and then we all have an issue.
Yeah.
When it comes to, let's say, Bitcoin, what's your strategy in buying? Do you dollar cost average? Do you feel a whim? Like, what are you long? Like, tell me about it.
It's I guess whatever you could call it like. It's like efficient markets, and you can also just,
Do you believe that markets are efficient?
I do. I mean, I think that if you, I think that dollar cost averaging is going to be a solid play almost all the time, and so I dollar cost average into Bitcoin, and so I am constantly throwing a little bit in there, weekly. Buying a tiny amount, just kind of letting it, because it's so volatile, it's better than, you might invest in a stock monthly. The Bitcoin, you'll get a little more action investing weekly, whatever. And that's, it's like, at the end of the day, I think that, I don't know, a couple funny outlooks on it is this. There's more millionaires in the world than there are single Bitcoins. And I think most millionaires think that they can own anything they want. And so when they figure out they can't own a Bitcoin, then it's going to be worth more than $1 million at that point, just out of the fact that people want it for novelty, not including the fact that it actually will most likely be used in some type of logistical manner where people will need to hold it to use it. So I think down the road, you're looking at just like a huge asset, $1 million per Bitcoin asset. No telling when that's going to happen. It may not. That's me being a maximalist. Personally, I like to have fun with it as well. So on the side, just for fun, like I'll like day trade, swing trade by myself, just in my room at dark at 3 a.m. Like just for fun, right?
Yeah.
That's like
Do you have the gamer setup going on?
Yeah. It's like my educated gambling. That's my fun time, whatever. So that's just like like it's like what do they do, like DraftKings and stuff? I don't know. I'm not a huge sports guy, but so that's my fantasy football. But anyway, yeah.
All right, I can't be mad at that.
Yeah.
So.
It's so funny though that you talk about dollar cost averaging because it's such a non-sexy approach to investing.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
And yet it's been proven to be time and time again a very, very smart way to approach an overall investment strategy. But
Well,
it's just not fun.
It removes emotion. That's the best part about it, right?
Yeah.
Like naturally, we want to buy when it's at the absolute bottom. We want to sell at the absolute top. It's just you can't do that, So at least you go. I don't care what it does. Every 2 weeks or whatever your schedule is, I'm making this investment. Boom, 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 boom. It's done well. I did a chart actually because every time it doesn't matter when times are like in the middle, but when times are hot, that's probably where you see it the most. People get super mad at you whenever you talk about like dollar cost averaging. I did this right when things started correcting on the real estate side, right? And I was like, dude, this is the time. This is when you go in, right?
Yeah.
And everyone was like, yeah, but it's going to drop more. Like, let's wait for the bottom. And so I did this post showing basically 4 different examples. One, if somebody just didn't invest at all. One, if somebody timed the market perfectly, right? Like was able to actually buy at all the bottoms and sell at the tops. Somebody who dollar cost average, and then your worst investor of all time, right? The guy who bought at the highs and just, terrible timing. And the graph basically showed that the person that didn't invest at all lost, right? The person that was the worst investor actually did way better than the person that saved. And then the dollar cost average versus the person who had, the best timing you could possibly have, the variance wasn't that far off. Like it was so close that it just made you go, what's the point in trying to risk it? The premium's not even there. But you're right. It's not sexy, and people tend to want to do things that are exciting. That's why I think Cody's brand took off so much. Like Cody just markets boring businesses.
Yeah, there you go.
I want cash machines.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
We feel that on storage.
All the time.
Like a lot of times we talk about storage and you see people just glaze over.
Well, you guys make it cool. I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pat you on the back.
Thank you.
Y'all
That's
do make it
impressive.
cool. Well, because if you look at comedy, you're kind of like, oh, what are these guys doing? Oh, real estate. Okay, real estate's cool. Oh, and you dive into a little more. You get a little, and then you're like, storage units. Huh. Cool. Like that's just. I mean, you guys make it look great. I mean, but it is at the end of the day when you're worried about what's important, which is your returns. I mean, it's an awesome product.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. No, I'm with you. It's.
I
not
feel like
super
if
cool.
you can make storage units and mobile home parks, maybe that's the even further down than storage.
Yeah.
You make that cool, we did it.
Right,
Real
right.
estate wins,
Yeah.
I mean, dude, Brandon's done a great job at making mobile home parks a cool thing to participate in,
Yeah, but you know what I can't figure out? Like Brandon has like a hot audience that is hyper focused on real estate investing. They are here for real estate investing, right? So I think he's done such a good job educating people to like look at a cash flowing business or just an opportunity that's good as exciting, regardless of the asset class, right? Like, if I were to tell you this thing's going to get you 8% cash on cash return with, an appreciation potential. We're going to double your money every 4 years, 5 years, whatever. You would be like, yeah, what is it? Like you'd be excited to hear about it. That's, I think, not most people. Like the younger you get, the more the sexy component comes into play. So you're really looking at it's your generation. You get Gen Z to think it's cool.
Yeah.
That's a different story. I don't know if storage is there yet.
I don't think it is. Maybe if we tokenize it, though.
Yeah,
That could be
BlackRock's
it.
trying to do that, and that's I think that's actually a great use. Sorry to completely interject, but you're on the right track. NFTs have this magic thing going on where nobody knows what the heck to do with them yet, and tokenizing, like, imagine if you could tokenize the Mona Lisa and sell the Mona Lisa in 100,000 parts, and everybody could own a little piece of the Mona Lisa. Same thing, if you could, you could tokenize the real estate assets. You could tokenize a house, and you could have 10 owners of the same house, and then the rent revenue is, distributed to each of them. Like,
Right.
I think that's
Mikey
great
really
stuff.
wants a commune coin.
We're talking to a group right now about
There
how to basically, like the way we sell shares of an investment, right? You go cash or fiat and purchase shares, and then those shares, reflect or own the real estate. In theory, you could do the same thing by tokenizing the shares, right? And not have to go from crypto to fiat, just have your crypto backed by a real estate asset. We're talking to a group right now. It's over my head a little bit, you know? It's like I don't know enough of how it works. So we're going through the education process right now. But I think that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I mean, commune coin.
Yeah, it's got a ring to it.
He's been talking about it for a while.
It's been a while. It's
Commune coin, man. It's got a good ring to it. I think
it's where things are going. I mean, it really did it for us.
Yeah.
Commune capital, commune coin, commune cup when we launched the golf tournament. What else?
Oh, there's going to be a cup for the golf tournament?
Did you hear about this?
No, the commune cup's got a ring to it as well. Yeah,
saying we're going to launch the first one in Bandon Dunes. I think we're going to invite 20 people out. We're going to have a commune cup. Maybe it's filled with commune coins. Look at the frickin'.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit, baby.
He just stressed out everybody in the room in 30 seconds.
Yeah, and all these commune things. Oh, my gosh.
With this vision.
My compliance officer is going to lose his mind.
Yeah.
By the way, for the compliance officer's sake of the company, we should say that everything we talked about in the podcast today should not be construed as financial advice. Seek a professional. Don't listen to what we said.
100%. 100%.
And look, the commune stuff that we're talking about right now, I'm throwing out ideas. I'm in my mind palace right now. Yeah. Okay, this is not coming to fruition yet.
This pod is for entertainment purposes only. 100%. Do not take it as financial advice.
I'm in manifestation land.
Yeah. It's like, play the tape back. Anytime you see me like break eye contact and rattle off over here, I was like, it's not investment advice. It's like not, and then I was just like, I'll get back to the conversation. I like, and so that's been the back of my head the whole time.
No, like your mind is conditioned to think that way.
Okay, so let's touch on that one because that's I guess the first question I'm going to say. Do you think it's more important to know the information that you're speaking on, or do you think where you learn that information is more important or equally as important? So I guess the best way to explain that is having certificates or diplomas or degrees versus alternative learning. Do you think they hold the same weight?
I think they do. I think that personally, I think it's about learning style as well. But I also think that getting your hands dirty is probably the best way to learn something as a whole because you do have a disconnect. I think most people know this, or we're seeing it. These college kids are coming out and they're green. They spent 3 years reading about it, but they're kind of green still. And that's like I think that's a problem. I think that the big thing is there's a trade-off of thoroughness. You're obviously being extremely thorough in like a collegiate setting versus a trade setting because you've learned all these very fine details, right, that you might not learn until 10 years into your career as a tradesman when you run across this odd scenario, right? But at the same time, I think repetition is important. You have to do it. Like I said, you have to get your hands dirty. I mean, I would say that it's a tough toss-up. I don't know if I'm the guy that's a hard question to ask. I think it's like really personally, if I picked, I think getting your hands dirty, I think doing the work, learning by experience is going to be more effective in the long run. But you need to know what you're doing. Like, right. So if you're not getting the thoroughness that you need, then do them both at the same time. Read a book and go out there and, just start trying to learn how to weld. Whatever it is you're doing, if you're trying to be a welder or a financial advisor or real estate investing or, cafe guy, I don't know, whatever it is.
So what do you, like now that you're going into this world and you're talking about FINRA and, how regulated the financial industry, our industry is heavily regulated. What you can and can't say is in a pretty tight box. Is that a good or bad thing? Because I get frustrated about it all the time. He knows this.
I think it's just like they're trying, for lack of better words, idiot-proof everything, which, it's just like that happens, right? Because I was literally doing a course and they were like, it's funny we have to say these things, but we do. Don't steal from your client. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have to say that stuff. So, yeah, I think that stuff needs to be there, right? And it's obviously important because at the end of the day, it's like, especially stepping out of, so the tests are all a little different and you learn things in a different mindset. And so stepping from the 63 to the 65, when you go from being a security salesperson basically to an advisor, you're taking on that role of being a fiduciary, which is more of like, actually serving people, kind of like talking about being public servants. Mm-hmm. Like you you have to have 100% of your client's best interest in mind. You're no longer yourself. You technically need to just be a medium to process your client's information. You really shouldn't be giving, I think the best way to do this is you're giving almost zero personal opinion to your client. If we're strictly talking financial advising, you're just taking what they're saying, and like you said, you're trying to help them avoid some road bumps, and making sure things suitable.
How old are you?
I'm 29.
29.
Yep.
All right. Out of 29, experience in acting, now in finance, skateboarder, entrepreneur. I mean, you've done a lot, right?
Yeah.
Let's finish on best piece of advice through your life experience that you can give somebody coming up. Let's say they're 17, 18. What's the nugget that you've learned over the last 29 years that you can pass on?
Can we come back in like 8 hours or something like that? And can we cut? I don't know.
Is there a key principle that's guiding you right now? Like,
Yeah.
Where are you focusing on as your, I don't know what you want to call it, North Star, or like, what are some of those, or singular pillar that's driving you?
Yeah, man. I think particularly just thinking about if I talked to myself when I was 18-ish or whatever, 17, like two big things that have really been important to me the last few years particularly is that, things will work out. Then just kind of that phrase. And that alludes to like alleviating some of the, anxious thoughts that may occur, right? When you're thinking through a situation or you're just worrying about the future anxieties, period, right? Things will be okay because I still think like, what is 40, 50, 60 going to look like? But be 30. What is 30 going to look like? These things, am I going to be able to do this? And so it's just like realizing things will be okay. But the other thing is really working on yourself, making sure that you as a person are just doing the best you can at being a good human, but also, and in good this is also all very just ambiguous, but like, in a kind of karmic sense, like putting out good energy, being a good person, doing kind of that morally correct thing. And that's tough. That means different things, different sides of the world, but also just, making sure that you are the best person that you can be, right? Because you can put all this energy into your job, into your career, into your whatever, and you'll do a good job. You'll probably make a good bit of money or whatever. You can probably do great, but you're like a boulder on a stilt. You might not personally be ready to take some black swan catastrophe. Right? And so then you lose everything. And if you have put all that time into yourself instead, then you're ready to go. You're building a pyramid. Instead, you have a foundation that's super strong. And we're talking about what's not sexy. Self-care is not as sexy as like, driving Lambos and like whatever, like feeding into your ego and, buying a Rolex when you make your first like 50K. It's not as cool as that. We talked about that earlier too. So those types of things is like, I wish I had some of that guidance, because back then when I was 18, 19, all I was worried about was when can I make my first $1 million, so that's kind of what I would give myself, I guess. I don't know.
All right, Bo Mitchell.
Thanks, guys.
And what's the newest movie that is premiering? I think this weekend is the one you're out here for.
Yeah, I'm out here right now for Sweet Dreams. It's it's kind of a comedy with some amazing talent. It's got Johnny Knoxville as the lead. It's got supporting roles from like Theo Vaughn, Bobby Lee, Kate Upton. So it's got a pretty fun ensemble. And it was directed by a friend of mine, Lige Sharkey. So good dude, skater as well, which is pretty cool to see him out here doing his thing. And it's going to be great. It's kind of a Bad News Bears vibe. Johnny Knoxville is like a Buttermaker character, and the team is a bunch of adults in a halfway house. So, and they're playing softball.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it'll be a good kind of wholesome comedy. So.
All right, everybody go check it out. Bo, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, appreciate it. Cool.
Ooh.